Welcome to episode 18 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we discuss the opening weekend of the 2023 college season. Sunday's games wrapped up a few minutes ago, and my goodness, it feels great to say that lacrosse is back.
Woohoo! So excited. I finally have things to do on my weekends again.
Yes, and Karson, she just got back in time for the podcast. She made time. She was at her mom's house this weekend, got back in time so we could do the podcast. What a true professional Karson Harris is, okay?
I do my best.
So on Friday, D1 season got started with Denver topping Louisville in a game that we will discuss in more detail because that was a weird game, folks, okay? Vandy went to overtime, beat Colorado in the first OT game of the season. The ACC went 3-1. Only team that lost was Louisville. Michigan won on the road Friday night in Jacksonville, which caught me off guard personally. But according to Instagram and our poll that we did on our story, most people were not surprised, which I'll have something to say about later. On Saturday, 27 games were played. It was a full day of women's lacrosse. Delaware State and Howard played in Chapel Hill to get things started. USC's offense came up short in Boston. Clemson and Xavier began their inaugural seasons. One team won, the other not so much. And there was a top 5 showdown that we will break down in more detail. And yes, that's Northwestern and Syracuse. That was an amazing game. Amazing top 5 showdown. That game might go down as one of the best all year. Obviously, we still have a long ways to go, but great game. And then today, Ohio State moved to 2-0. They beat Temple by a goal in a game that Temple controlled the first half, and then Ohio State came out in the second half and they controlled Temple and they won by a single goal. That was a good game. Youngstown State and Butler came down to the final minute today. Inside because it's Ohio and early February in Ohio, you can't play outside unless you're trying to get a little frostbite, okay? And then finally, the Florida Gators looked really good in their season opener. So all that to say, Karson, we have so much to talk about today.
We do.
I'm excited. Good.
That's all I got for you. We do. I'm so excited about it. I think there were a lot of surprises and also, some really good games. And some people that we expected to dominated also. So those will be fun to talk about as well.
It was great. I am tired right now, but man, it was a great weekend. Okay, this was fun. This is why we cover women's lacrosse here at Lacrosse Extras, because it's the greatest sport in the world, and we have some amazing things to talk about. So topic number 1, we are going to get right into it. What caught your eye from this weekend's opening games, Karson?
I think first, Villanova dominated William & Mary. They won 18-6 after losing to them by 1 goal last year. And we had Coach Batchelor on the podcast an episode before this, and I thought it was just really cool to see them come out and kind of win that game, dominate that game after such a tough loss to them. They had 8 different goal scorers, and they also scored the last 6 goals of the game, which I think was the fun and cool part about that, because we talked last episode with Coach Batchelor about how they had a hard time believing in themselves. That belief to win close games kind of suffered last year, and it was difficult for them. So to see them come out, win 18-6, score the last 6 goals of the game, kind of gives us a lot of hope for their future and the season, and kind of caught my eye because we already said they were a team to watch, but that win this weekend definitely makes them even more of a team to watch.
I gotta be honest, I was not too surprised by that score. I expected Villanova to win that game pretty easily, and they did. So congrats to Nova. We have more to talk about. We just focused the whole last episode on Villanova. So I got to move on from them real quick, fast, and in a hurry, okay? I'm going up to Syracuse, New York. What caught my eye was Emma Tyrell, okay? Watching her return was amazing. I caught myself. She came into the game, a lot of time went by before she actually got into the game, and I was like, why isn't she in the game? Why isn't she in the game? And they mentioned during the broadcast that Coach Trainer had told them that she was going to be a little slow with some of the people returning from injury. Obviously, Emma Ward started to play the whole game, but Emma Tyrell came in and she scored right away. We posted a clip of that on Instagram, and that was, for me, that was so amazing to see. First off, the crowd showing her some love, giving her a big cheer when she came onto the field. That's something she's always going to remember. And then to score right away. And then who greets her right away? It's her sister who assisted on the goal. Okay, that was just amazing. And the smile on her face, it was amazing to see the team's response both on the field and the sideline based on one of the camera angles was amazing. You could tell that she is so loved and respected by the fans, by her teammates, and that is just the coolest thing to me. So watching Emma Tyrell return, and then when she goes to the sideline, she gets a huge hug from Coach Trainer and Coach Kinsey Kent. I mean, it was just amazing. And that just made me smile. That was a heartwarming moment for me. And then after the game, she still couldn't stop smiling. Okay, she was taking pictures with the fans. Syracuse gave out their initial drip award, which Meg Carney won. Okay, go check out their Instagram if you did not see that. It was a very great moment, very cool video. And Emma Tyrell is smiling so big. She's still so happy. And I'm just the whole day for her to return, for it to be a top 5 team. That was just amazing. I love seeing cool moments like that and moments that are bigger than just scoring a goal or anything. She came back from a very serious injury and she looked damn good. Let me tell you, she had 3 goals and she could have had more if she played more. Okay. So watch out for Emma Tyrell in 2023.
Oh yeah. I think there's a lot to unpack in that game. I was going to say, we're going to get to it later, but there were a bunch of surprises that come out of that game, in my opinion.
Well, what do you say we just get to it right now?
You want to? That's fine with me.
Okay. Syracuse and Northwestern, number 5 versus number 4, Karson. Your thoughts?
I think that there were huge goal scorers in that game. I mean, Izzy Skane putting up 5 and after also returning from injury, that is unheard of pretty much in the world of lacrosse to come up and to be relied on so heavily by a team after coming back from your ACL is just, that's like a terrifying experience for someone. And I think that in the back of your head, you're always wondering, like, am I going to measure up? Am I going to be able to do this? People are expecting huge things from me. And for her to come out and put up 5 goals and 2 assists, let's not forget about those, is just insane. And why would you just mentioned Emma Tyrell's smile? Like, Izzy Skane for me is the most adorable person in the entire world. Like when she scored and her first goal, like you could almost see her relax. And I think just for her to have that momentum going into the season makes me so happy because you have that doubt until you don't anymore. You have that doubt of like, am I going to be enough? Am I going to be everything I was? You have that until you don't. And I think that she shed that pretty quickly this season. So after this game, I'm really excited to see what she does. And even followed with that, she had her freshman, Madison Taylor, scoring 5 goals alongside her. I'm sure you were going to talk about it also, but absolutely insane to me. Like, I just think that she played with such confidence. I didn't even know she was a freshman until the announcers were like, this is her first collegiate goal ever as a Northwestern Wildcat. Insane.
And then she scored 4 more.
Right, exactly. Absolutely insane to play with that much confidence in a top 5 matchup team. I was worried they were going to miss Lauren Gilbert. And honestly, watching them, like, they didn't look like they missed her. I'm sure they do.
Okay, let's not be disrespectful now, Karson. No, okay.
I'm sure they do, but they found a really good way to close. I mean, she left a gaping hole, let's be honest, but they found a really good way to close it with Madison Taylor and Izzy Skane coming back. I'll say that.
Yeah, so Madison Taylor did look really good. She definitely did not look like a freshman. She, just going off how she's built like almost like Izzy Skane, a little smaller, but she looks like a college-ready player, and she clearly is based on her performance. Going back to Izzy Skane, I think she blew me away, honestly. Sounds like she blew you away too with her performance. I think it was very impressive. She did have some rust that showed she had some uncharacteristic ball handling miscues, which I think that happens. And I think during the broadcast they pointed this out too. She was a little reckless at times with her driving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also kind of, haven't played in a while, haven't, been in a meaningful game in a while. So I think that will get under control as the season goes on. Because I mean, there were some physical drives in that game, and she took some shots, but she was also, initiating a lot of that because she was a little reckless with some of her drives. So 5 goals on 13 shots. She took a lot of shots. Okay, and if she didn't go 0 for 4 on free positions, she would have had more goals. Okay, and so she struggled on the free positions, struggled with some rust, but overall, it was a great return for her. I think she exceeded expectations in her return, and I think Northwestern we didn't really talk about them a whole lot when we did our season preview, but they looked good. Okay. And if they can help out Izzy Skane like Taylor did, and if other players can step up and they have that scoring depth, then Northwestern is going to be, they're going to be good, especially if they get a little bit of better goalie play, which we'll talk about. So overall, I think it was a great return for Izzy Skane. So as far as the game, not player focused, Syracuse got their revenge from the last NCAA tournament when they got shamacked up there in Evanston, Illinois, okay, against Northwestern. This game had 7 different ties, okay, very back and forth, very good game. And I wanted to point this out. 2,062 fans were in attendance. That's amazing, okay. Shout out to the fans for showing up, and shout out to Syracuse for making that information available, as most teams do, but shout out to Syracuse. Okay, and I texted you this during the game, Karson. I said there was no love lost between these two teams. Did you think it was more physical than you expected, or is that just what happens when you have 2 top 5 teams meeting in a rematch of what was the final game of the season for one of the teams?
Yeah, I think it was definitely what you're gonna get when you have a top 5 matchup, specifically between those two teams. I feel like those two teams in general have a lot of brute force on them. Both of those teams have play with brute force. I mean, even Izzy Skane, like they're all just strong girls. And I think that when you come down to it, I think it's a different style of play than a UNC or potentially Boston College. Potentially I take them out of that. But I think that I think that it was definitely a revenge game for Syracuse, but I also think that you can expect that level of aggressiveness from those two teams pretty much anytime you play them, no matter who they're playing.
Interesting. I gotta be honest, I was enjoying it. Megan Tyrell, she got fouled hard, and she came up. You could tell she was not too happy when she got fouled once. Bianca Chevry, and I can't remember the Northwestern player, but Bianca Chevry kind of shoved her off at one point. And then Erin Kuykendall, she just has an edge to her. She has a little like, we're not friends while we're on the field, and I love it. So the game, I feel like overall the game had a nice edge to it. There were just so many storylines: Skane returning, Tyrell returning, Emma Ward returning. How would Northwestern look with a new goalie without Lauren Gilbert? It was in the Carrier Dome, which has been renamed. We'll just call it Carrier Dome, okay? It was 5 versus 4. One of the best coaches of all time in Kelly Amonte Hiller, another really good coach in Kayla Trainer, who's in her second year at Syracuse and got a big win because she got out-coached last year, let's just be honest, and she got a big win against Kelly Amonte Hiller. So that was super cool. What are your thoughts on Syracuse's goalie play and defense?
I was just going to say this is my next point, because I think when I put them in my top 5, you gave me a lot of crap because you're worried about their defense and their goalie. And honestly, when you said it, you scared me too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was very confident in it. And I was hesitant to put them in my top 5, but they played. I mean, their defense stepped up as much as they could have in that game. Their goalie had a career high 11 saves, Delaney Schweitzer, 11 saves, and then Katie Goodale with career high 4 caused turnovers and 4 ground balls, which is an incredible game for a defender to have. So I think they played well. They were all over the Northwestern girls. I think they forced Northwestern to feed a lot more than they anticipated, probably. And I mean, if you think about those kind of girls that are playing Northwestern's girls, like in my opinion, haven't been a huge feeding team. And in the first half, I was a little surprised by the amount of feeds they were throwing in. And I think that Syracuse came out with a good defense. Their goalie played a strong game. I was actually looking up the shooting percentage of these teams before this podcast, which it wasn't as high as I thought it was, but they both had 75% shots on goal. I mean, they were taking over 30 shots, a little bit over in this game. I mean, 75% shot on goal. I think that's impressive goalie play out of both teams. So I think just going forward, you don't have to be as worried about Syracuse defense. I'm a little more confident with them in my top 5. That's for sure.
Hey, listen, it was a very good game for them. So they gave up a lot of goals, but you're going to give up a lot of goals when you play Northwestern. So I wouldn't put a whole lot into that for this game. Now, if they play, their next 3 games and they give up 15 goals, 14, 15 again, whatever, then I'll be worried. But this is one game against, it's the first game of the season. You're going to have miscues. You're going to have, they had one really bad miscue when a freshman defender just was lost out there. Okay, that was a bad miscue. Okay, but she's a freshman, and hey, she got the start for Syracuse, so props to her. So yeah, 11 saves for Schweitzer. I was surprised when she started the game. I thought it was going to be Kimber Hauer. Both of them struggled last year, as we talked about, so we don't need to really dive into that. But Schweitzer played good. She was impressive. She made big saves. She stood strong in there. And hey, at the end of the day, she outplayed La Liberty for Northwestern, and that was really one of the differences in the game. So Emma Tyrell, like I said, she had 3 goals in limited action. Megan Tyrell, Meeg, okay, had 8 points. 8 points. Okay. Tuaraton, here she comes, Mike. It seemed like she had a quiet game for a while, too. And she finished with 8 points. I mean, my goodness.
She's sneaky. Like, she is sneaky good. She just puts up points, like, easily, I think. I always feel like she's quiet about it.
Yeah, and let's be honest. There's no stat chasing in women's lacrosse. It's not like basketball. You can grab a rebound or get a kinky assist. That we don't do that in women's lacrosse. Okay, there's no stat chasing. 8 points is amazing. Okay. Offensively for Syracuse, they had 7 different goal scorers. Thoughts on their offense and playing the way they did, putting up 16?
Yeah, I texted you in the beginning of the game, and I was like actually disappointed in their offense. I was disappointed in both people's offenses actually, because like you mentioned earlier, I did think Northwestern was forcing opportunities. I think Izzy Skane was trying to prove to herself that she was back. She eventually got it together, and I think did. But I just think in the beginning of that game for both teams, they were forcing it. I think Syracuse had forced opportunities as well. Drives that were just kind of east to west with no real purpose. And they ended up losing the ball from it. So I think both teams kind of started out the game forcing it, which is expected. It's the first game of the season. There's going to be rust. There's going to be people trying to prove themselves. But by the end of it, Syracuse was playing tic-tac-toe like I've never seen before. I think, well, not that I've never seen before, like I saw them do last season. I think that their offense is very much ball movement, and they've always been known for their ability to like hit the one more low and then look middle, or hit the one more high and then look down to the crease. I think that they're very good in their triangles on offense. And they played that. They settled in, they figured it out. Their man up, I think I don't know what their man up stats were, but they had the same play both times, man up, and it worked like a charm. Like I think they felt very settled in by the second half, which is impressive because it's still only the first season or the first game of the season. So I was impressed by their offense by the end of it. They definitely cleaned it up for me.
So you were impressed with both their offense, their defense, and their goalie play. Did anything not meet your expectations for Syracuse in their opener?
Let's see. I think they looked really fast too. I mean, honestly, like their first half in general, I wasn't impressed with. I think that in general,
it's the first half of the first game of the season.
Well, you asked me. I gave them all the credit I could. I told them their defense was good, their offense was good, their goalie play was good. I don't think their first half was very good, which is understandable. I don't think anybody had a good first half of their first game this opening weekend. But
oh, now the Duke Blue Devils did, but I won't go down that road. Okay.
But so if you're asking me their first half, I think they forced things that they shouldn't have, but I think they've cleaned it up and played an incredible second half of their game. So
well, here I thought I was critical sometimes. You're way more critical on this game than me. I thought it was a great game. Obviously there's always going to be things to work on. It's the season opener, but for the season opener, I thought it was a well played game, especially in that second half. I think, and that's what you expect as, two great teams, two great coaches. You expect the second half to, adjustments will be made. They'll get things cleaned up, so great for them. So I have a few stats for you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also, going off of that, think like huge kudos to Northwestern and Syracuse for scheduling a top 5 game as their first game of the season. I think that's not something that you see ever. Everyone always schedules their like games they should win in the beginning of their season, or you never see a top 5 match from the beginning. So I think huge kudos to them for giving us this game opening weekend also.
For sure. And hey, if College Game Day existed in the realm of women's lacrosse, it would have been up there in Syracuse. Yeah. Okay, this is a big time showdown.
All right, go ahead.
Few stats for you. Hughes had more ground balls and fewer turnovers, and that equals winning more times than not. Okay. So they did that. Katie Goodell, as we mentioned, played amazing. 4 GBs, 4 caused turnovers. She had the game sealing turnover at the end of the game after Northwestern won the draw, which made things interesting there for a little bit. Okay. 2 more stats. Actually, I have 3 more stats if I can, count correctly. So Molly La Liberty, she only had 6 saves. It was kind of a hard game for me to break down for her because it felt like she had more saves than just 6 saves. I was surprised when I looked at the stats and it said only 6 saves. And so obviously it was her first game of the Division I level. You're going against a team in Syracuse that can shoot with the best of them. There was no question coming into the season that Syracuse's offense is going to be one of the best in the nation, and they might be the best in the nation. Okay, so I think Molly La Liberty, only had 6 saves to Schweitzer's 11, but I felt like she played pretty well. I think she gave them enough to win the game. I don't think I don't think they have anything to worry about at the goalie position. And I think they'll be just fine with there. But she did get outplayed by Schweitzer on the other end. Okay. As a team, we mentioned Skane 0 for 4 from free positions. And free positions, those, I don't know what the percentage in your mind is. Some people have different viewpoints, but those are almost free goals. Not all the time, especially depending on where your position is. So maybe I shouldn't say free goals, but at least over 50% of the time you should be scoring on those. I would say that's a safe bet. What was that?
I'd say 60-70% is what I'd give you.
Oh, see, I said 50. You said 60-70. There goes critical Karson again. Okay. Anyways.
Not that I did that very often in my career, but 60 or 70.
Okay, so they struggled on the free positions. 4 of 12 as a team. That's not going to get it done in big games. You gotta get the easy ones, and that's what free positions are more times than not. And the stat that really just blew my mind when I saw it were the draw controls. 23-11. Northwestern
8-1 in the third quarter.
What was that?
8-1 in the third quarter.
Yes. 8-1 in the third quarter, 23-11 overall. How you win 12 more draw controls and lose the game, that just blows my mind. So Northwestern lost this game, but they had every opportunity to win this game. Okay. Even going back to Emma Tyrell's first goal, they were 2 players down. You can't let that happen.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. I was just about to bring this up, and then you brought that. It's like works perfectly in. My high school coach when I was growing up, like it sticks in my head for my entire life. He says, to win a game, you need 3 things: ground balls, draw controls, and quality possessions. Those are his 3. And you said, if you win those, you win the game. And so they had draw controls, but as you mentioned before, like Syracuse had less turnovers and they had more ground balls. So Syracuse had 2 of 3. So Coach Mack, my old high school coach, would have said Syracuse wins the game because they had ground balls and quality possessions. So.
Hey, I like that. That was good. And I just think Northwestern, if these 2 teams play each other again in the season, is going to be interesting because this one could have gone either way. And Northwestern on the road, season opener, they had every opportunity to win this game. Every opportunity.
I agree.
So it was a great game. That's what we wanted. So any final thoughts on Northwestern and Syracuse in front of 2,062 fans? Okay.
I love that there were over 2,000 fans there. Like, that's awesome to me. That makes me really happy. And no, I think I said my piece. It was a great game. I want them to meet again in the NCAA tournament, to be honest, because I want to watch them play again together. I think it's a good.
Well,
hey,
if you thought this one was physical, if they meet in the tournament, ratchet it
running
up. Okay. All right. We have one more game to break down, and that is Louisville and Denver. Okay, this kicked off the season, and it was a freaking weird one. Okay, it was a good game, close game, but it was weird. It was a little wonky, and I don't like using the word wonky, but it was a little wonky. Okay, Karson, break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean Denver Louisville final score 5-4, and if that says anything about how weird of a game it was. Final score 5-4. That should be a quarter score. Maybe a halftime, but a quarter. That should be a first quarter score. I mean, it speaks to how incredible the Denver defense is. It's crazy. Louisville had 25 turnovers, but went 20 for 22 in the clear, which means almost all of those were made in the defensive end, which is just an unbelievable amount of turnovers. And that came from Denver's defense. Take it from me, impossible to break through. But their offense was disappointing for me. 5 goals in a game. It should not be a close game if your defense holds them to 4 goals. The defense loves to blame the offense in everything, in every sport. It's always the offense.
Oh, jeez.
But in this case, the defense has quite the leg to stand on. I mean, there just felt like there was no one willing to go to goal for Denver, and there was so much east to west dodging, and like there was so much across the 8. They would dodge across the 8, try to roll back. And I was like, somebody take a step to the goal. Like, I just need one of you to take a step forward towards the goal, go north-south.
Okay, I'm going to have to jump in here. I'm going to give you the person who was going to the goal. Okay. B. Barron's gone offensively, and she carried the load for them the past few seasons, okay? And I texted you this during the game because we actually talked. I briefly mentioned it the last episode. Coach Bachelor was like, it's going to be very interesting to see Denver without B. Barron's offensively. Not to say I told you so, but I told you so. Lauren Black, okay, she's a very good player, and she was the only player for them that was going to the cage.
I
And
agree.
she was making her own shot. She was the only one making her own shot. She took 7 of the team's 18 shots, okay? There was no hesitation. There was no fear from her. She was going to the cage, and she could have had a few more goals. She had some tough looks, but she got in close, and they were close. And you got to give credit to Louisville's goalie too. She played a good game. Obviously wasn't challenged the most based on Denver's offensive struggles, but she made saves. Okay, but Lauren Black was the only person on Denver's team that was going to the cage. Other than that, it was just, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to pass it to you. You do your thing. I'm going to wait out here. But no one was doing their thing other than Lauren Black. Okay.
Yeah. Which is a problem when you have one person going to goal, like, and no one else requiring any sort of double team ever from like Louisville's defense. I just think it made even Lauren Black's job really hard because if she was creating by herself, she was creating against 2 or 3 Louisville defenders.
Yeah. So Denver, hey, give them credit. They pulled out the game. Great teams find ways to win. Louisville, they find ways to lose. I'm sorry. I am a huge fan of some of their players, but they just find ways to lose games. It is. I felt like this was a little bit of a heartbreaker for them, not because it's a season opener, not because you're at home and you're playing a ranked team and you led the whole game. Okay, they were up 4-0. They lost 5-4. What? I mean. But for them to lose this game with the gauntlet of a schedule that they always have, this was a huge game for them because they're going to struggle in the ACC, I think would be what most people think. But they could have still been tournament eligible, and they can still be tournament eligible if they're 500. This was a huge game for them, and they let it slip. And I feel for them because they can't seem to win the close games, okay? Give them a lot of credit. They bounced back today. They beat Colorado in a game that I was very surprised by. Okay. Colorado's 0-2, but that's a whole nother story. Let's see. So I mentioned Louisville was up 4-0. What was crazy to me is when Denver scored goals 3, 4, and 5 in the fourth quarter. So they entered the fourth quarter with, I think, 2 goals on the day, something like that. In the fourth quarter, they scored goals 3, 4, and 5 in less than 2 minutes. In 60 minutes of game time, they scored, 5 goals? They scored 3 of those goals in 2 minutes. So in 58 minutes of game time, they had, what is the math, 2 goals? I mean, I was watching, I was like, what's going on, Louisville? You can't let this happen, you know? And so it was hard to watch for Louisville because I feel like they outplayed them.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes. Like we heard, I think a lot of when we talked to like Jill Bachelor, like I think so many teams struggle like with that like imposter syndrome. Like I think Louisville looked around and they were like, we're winning 4-2 against Denver. Like what? Like I think that when those quick things like that happen, it just comes from a team not thinking they're gonna win, like not thinking that they are terrified to lose. Like when you get into that situation as a team who shouldn't be winning, you start the game like ready to go, has something to prove. By the time you get to the fourth quarter and you're winning, you start to look around like absolutely terrified to lose, and that's when those kind of things happens. Like that's when you lose them because you start to doubt yourself, I think, and I think that's exactly what Louisville did. I think and then once they scored 5, it was over because I think when you're Louisville, you're thinking like, oh my God, it took us an entire game to score 4 goals. Like there's no way they hadn't scored in the third quarter. Like
they didn't score at all in the third or the fourth quarter.
Like I think once it was 5-4, it's over.
Yeah, like you said, once Denver went up 5-4, it just kind of felt like it was over. Hey, Louisville had a chance from the 8-meter. Okay, they had a good opportunity. Didn't go for them. I was hoping. I was like, man, first game of the season, let's go to OT. But it didn't work out that way. So I have some more stats for you. Louisville had 25 turnovers. Completely just did not protect the ball. Quality possessions you mentioned earlier, 25 turnovers. That's not getting the job done, okay? And give credit to Denver's defense, especially early in the game. They were super aggressive and they were forcing some turnovers early in the game, okay? So give credit to Denver's defense, but 25 turnovers, that's not going to win you any games, okay? And if you just push away the turnovers to the side, the rest of the stats were pretty even. I mean, it was an even game. And like I said, I thought Louisville outplayed them. I thought Louisville was the better team. They were up 4-0. Obviously 4-0, it isn't a whole lot, but when the final score is 5-4, it's an eternity to be up 4-0. Okay, that's everything. Okay, so man, I feel for Louisville. I think they let one slip, and I think it might come back to haunt them later in the season if they're on the edge of being 500 trying to be tournament eligible.
No, I agree. I think, but you mentioned giving credit to Denver's defense. I mean, you have to. Vandy scored 6 today. Like they outscored their opponents 16-10 today, and so they did figure it out. They scored an even amount of points against Vandy today. So, but I mean, yeah, their defense is what's going to win them games this year. That's for sure. That was evident this weekend.
Well, yeah, and both offenses played better today, which I have nothing wrong with the defensive game, but it was a little bit of a sloppy game. That's more so why I called it a wonky one. I have no problem with great defense. I'm all for great defense, okay? But the sloppiness and just the lack of ability to even get a shot off was just mind-blowing to me.
I mean, the shots were 12-8, Denver. 12-8.
That's crazy.
Oh, we'd be running so much for that if I still played for Drexel.
Yeah, but hey, both offenses, they came out today. They put up more goals. Would have been hard not to, just saying. And give credit to Louisville. I mean, like I said, I think they let this one slip. I think they should have won, but they bounced back today. They beat a very good Colorado team that went to OT with Vandy. And Colorado, I mean, that's a respectable team. That I think Colorado is better than Denver. So I don't know how, but anyways.
That's a bold statement right there.
Well, hey, maybe now that they're 0-2, okay. But it's like just watching them against Vandy. Okay, Vandy is a good team. They're not a great team, but they're good competition. I think Colorado is a good team, and I'm surprised they lost today, to be honest, against Lou. I really am. I don't know. Colorado's got some things to figure out, but hey, we're not talking about them right now. Any final thoughts, on Louisville and Denver? Denver entered at number 9. They might drop in the rankings, but hey, they are 2-0 now.
Yeah, no, not much more. I think that I'm excited to watch them develop this season. I do think they will have to figure out how to score because your number 9 is just pretty unattainable in a ranking. I think if you can't put up more than 10 goals in a game, I think good teams are going to find a way to expose you. So you're going to have to find ways to expose them. And so they're gonna have to find their groove a little on offense, I think, to hold that ranking. But their defense was as impressive as always, I think.
For sure. And hey, it's better to learn and win than learn in a loss. And they're learning with 2 early wins. They went out east, got it done. They're going back home now. So hey, shout out to Denver. Good teams find ways to win.
Shut up. We're 2-0. Like, go back home. Stop talking about us.
Hey, I'm not. Hey, listen. I talked to one of the DeRose triplets. I will not name her name, but you can go Google it with this fact. Okay, so she is not on the team this year. She retired after last season. She graduated. Okay, so that's why she retired, and she wasn't too impressed with them either. So it's not just us talking. So
okay, good.
Taylor, sorry to expose you, but just got to keep it 100. Okay. Anyways, topic number 3, the most surprising loss. Let me see in my notes here. Oh, I got it. I'm gonna go first if that's okay with you. Jacksonville losing to Michigan? What? Come on, man. Come on, Jacksonville. You're the Dolphins. You can't be losing to the Wolverines. Go ahead.
I mean, they're starting out this weekend 0-2. They lost to Michigan and then
Rutgers.
I was like, who did they just lose to? I was literally just watched that game all the way home. Michigan and Rutgers. You can't come out with a win this weekend. You're ranked 19th by US Lacrosse Magazine coming into this season.
Oh, they're not going to be ranked come tomorrow.
No, they're not. And I kind of am always on board. Like, they always get a lot of credit. I think they're always ranked. They're always doing cool things. Like, I'm always kind of on board with it, which is why I think that I'm surprised by these 2 losses.
And let me just add, they have Sarah Elms, who's been in college for like 10 years, and she's a great player, okay?
I played club with her. I love Sarah Elms.
She's a great player. I don't know. 0-2?
Yeah, And you're relying on Sarah Elms, who's a 6th year. Like, she's been playing lacrosse. She's been in college lacrosse for 6 years. You can't tell me you've been 6 years of recruiting. You can't find someone to score more goals than Sarah Elms in a game. She put up 3 each game.
Hey, I think she's been in college for 10 years, but we can go with 6. And also, they lost a big transfer, Maya Scanlon, to Clemson. And I think December of last year, so it was a really late transfer. Maya Scanlon was a freshman for them last year, played on the Haudenosaunee national team, and she's a great scorer. And she went to Clemson. I think that they were missing her. Okay, they did lose some graduates from last year, but as far as I'm concerned, their new head coach came in and said, "Oh, Big Ten, come try us," and they are glowing 0-2.
Yeah.
They got tried, and oh man, they got put in their place by the Big Ten. Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I was looking at they got ranked by US Cross Magazine, so I went back before this podcast, and I was just looking at their schedule from last year. I'm like, who did they beat? Like, why are they 19th? No one. The answer is no one. They beat no one.
Well, their conference is pretty weak. We both picked them to win the conference.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're going to win their conference. That's not my thing. But they beat Liberty, Coastal Carolina, Furman, Harvard, ECU. Some of those were out of conference games. Like, they're scheduling those games. They lost to Notre Dame 5-20, Florida 6-12.
They lost to Notre Dame by 15?
5-20, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then, they beat Stanford 28. That was their best.
That's a good win.
That's a great win. But to come into 19th in the country, I was on board with them, but their losses this weekend surprised me a lot.
Well, yeah, I think and this is the case in every sport, but the preseason rankings, we'd love to talk about them, but you got to take them with a grain of salt, because some teams are going to come out and they're going to poop the bed. I'm saying poop because you can't say the other word. Okay. And Jacksonville and listen, give them credit. The game today against Rutgers was a close game. Okay. I think they lost by 2. It was a close game.
Yeah.
But they were both at home. You got to at least split these games. Okay. And they played better against Rutgers than they did against Michigan, which I think doesn't surprise me, because it was the second game of the season for them and it was the first game for Rutgers. But man, Jacksonville, I give them credit for scheduling tough non-conference games. It just doesn't look good when you don't win them, obviously. But hey, they scheduled them. Don't bounce back. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament, so they're going to be fine. What I was really surprised about, so they took the lead 1-0, and that was their only lead of the game. Michigan controlled the game. I was very surprised by that. We put a poll up on Instagram, and most people said they weren't surprised that Michigan was winning, and that really surprised me, because I was surprised.
I voted surprised.
Because, so you mentioned the USA Lacrosse Magazine poll. In the IWLCA poll, Michigan was ranked, I think, 1 or 2 spots higher, and is currently ranked 1 or 2 spots higher before the polls come out tomorrow. And I thought Jacksonville was going to win that game. Michigan is a good team. They're always a good team, but I didn't think they were better than Jacksonville, and they controlled the whole game. They won by 5. I think they led by at least 3 goals most of the game. They just controlled it, and so I'm surprised by the fans' reaction, and I'm surprised by Jacksonville losing. So that was an interesting game.
I agree. That's funny. That was also mine. I had the same thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. My surprise was they were coming out of the weekend 0-2. Just in general, I thought for sure they'd split that. At least split the weekend. For sure.
Hey, we've talked about this before, and teams in the smaller conferences, they need to schedule tough non-conference games to prepare for the NCAA tournament. So this is going to help Jacksonville in the long run this season. It's obviously going to hurt right now. They're 0-2. They lost 2 games at home. It's going to hurt, but I think this will help them in the long run.
Yeah, they'll learn from it. I said they'll learn from it for sure. It'll be a good learning experience for them.
And it'll also be interesting. They have a brand new head coach. They have Molly Little on their coaching staff. One of their assistant coaches remains from last year, but it'll be interesting. Hopefully I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think the team will stay together. They'll be fine. And it also helps when you have an easy schedule. They're not going to quit or anything after 2 games, so they'll be fine.
No, it'll be okay.
They're not in the CAA. They want to do that like one of those teams. So I'm just playing with. I'm just trying to get a reaction out of Karson. You know how I be. Okay. Most impressive team, Karson, as we near the end of this podcast.
I struggled with this one. I didn't get to watch every single game this weekend, unfortunately, so I struggle with this one.
Well, we can't watch them all. There were like a million.
Can't watch them all, right? I do try to have a little bit of a life as well. So,
wow, are you saying I don't have a life? Hold up, wait a minute.
I'm saying we both have a life because neither of us can watch them all. But I kind of narrowed it down. I was just looking at the teams who stood out the way that I expected them to stand out. Like BC handed USC 14.
Okay, give us a real answer. Okay, BC beat. Come on now, come on.
I'm not done. Florida handed Michigan 17-8, and Maryland handed St. Joe's 15-5. Right? Those are I narrowed it down to those three because I was like,
you got to be kidding me, Karson.
No, because
Maryland and BC.
Here's the thing. What? No. Here's my thing.
Good teams lose
opening weekend. Good teams lose opening weekend. That's what happens. I saw a tweet today that February is literally the worst time for ranked teams because they lose. Duke men's lacrosse just lost to some. I don't even know.
Give a dang about the men's lacrosse. This is women's lacrosse we're talking about.
You lose your games in February. Good teams lose their games in February because they don't know. They haven't played yet. Maryland had freshmen scoring. They had freshmen scoring against the St. Joe's team who was going to be good this season, who just won their conference last year.
I can't believe you right now, Karson. I cannot believe you right now.
Listen, my answer is Florida in general. My answer is Florida because
Thank goodness it's not BC or Maryland. Because of course those teams look good. They did what they were supposed to do. They're two of the best teams in the country.
Listen, but that's the point is I think the most impressive teams are going to do what they're supposed to do. Coming out opening weekend and doing what you're supposed to do is just as impressive because not many people do. Teams don't come out and do what they're supposed to do very often in opening weekend. It's just true. We talked about how ugly the process again. We'll stick with that 100% because I mean they had 9 turnovers. Maryland had 9 turnovers. 9.
That's pretty dang good.
That's impressive. You had freshmen playing and you had 9 turnovers against the St. Joe's team who won their conference last year. That's impressive. They
won the conference, but they had a lot of people graduate. They had Figura go to North Carolina. So this ain't the same St. Joe's. I'm not saying
you're going to be a top 10 team. I'm just saying that when you're a freshman playing and you have 9 turnovers in a game is very impressive. But my answer is Florida because they handed it to Michigan, had 10 turnovers. And I actually got to watch that game and we talked about how impressive they looked. I think they had a ton of different goal scorers. I think they had 9 different goal scorers on the weekend. And I was also very impressed by Syracuse, like I talked about, but I didn't include them because we'd already talked about them, so I didn't count them. But
Karson, you give Syracuse. Okay, that was just I won't even bother them because you just threw them in. But Boston College and Maryland, of course they're gonna look good. Of course they're 2 of the best coach teams in the country. Okay.
But well, you asked me my most impressive team. What's your answer?
Old Dominion. Hey now.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, because I gave you a real team, not Boston College or Maryland. Of course they're gonna look good.
I threw Boston College out because they had 17 turnovers. You're giving me crap about how teams handled how they should handle things. Boston College, sure they handled them, but I threw them out because they had 17 turnovers. Maryland.
It's the first game of the season.
Well, you didn't let me use that as a reason for Maryland. Maryland had 9 turnovers, and you said you can't use Maryland, but I can't use Boston College. But you're giving them the excuse of it's the first weekend.
Bro. Hold up, wait a minute. You give most impressive team. Listen, at least you didn't say North Carolina. I thought you were just throwing in all the top 5 teams. I thought you were just mentioning 1 through 5 right for a second. Okay, I mean, listen. Okay, did Maryland look good? Yes. Did Boston College look good? Yes. But most impressive team? Come on now. We're not saying the best team. We're saying the most impressive, who exceeded the expectations, who did what we didn't think they were going to do. At least that's how I took the question.
Okay, well, I took it as the most impressive team because our surprise was who I didn't think was going to happen. But.
Okay, I don't know what you just said, but.
Most impressive.
Karson, I never disagree. I've never been more disappointed in you than your answer. Okay, but anyways, I got Old Dominion. They beat Elon 12-11. Elon is a respectable team out of the CAA, who you know because they are in your old conference. Okay, Elon, I think they're always respectable.
They're not.
I don't know if the audio picked that up, but we're not gonna listen. Carson's hating on Elon. Listen, Elon is a good team in my opinion. Okay. Golly, Karson, what in the world? She must have started drinking before her Super Bowl party because she acting a fool right now. Okay, anyways, I'm going with Old Dominion. They won 12-11, and Old Dominion, they just haven't been very good. Okay. They have a new head coach who came over from Youngstown State. And I was very impressed with them beating Elon on the road. And what really impressed me was I watched this game and they went down. There were a few stretches where Elon had 3 or 4 goals in a row. I'm like, oh, this is it for Old Dominion. They haven't been very good. They're not going to respond well to this. They're going to fold. And each time they bounced back. They trailed multiple times by multiple goals, okay? And they bounced back. They got a defensive stop to end the game. Super impressed with Old Dominion. First winning their season opener in a number of years, since 2018, I believe. And I was just super impressed with Old Dominion. So shout out to them. They also wore their brand new uniforms, which is a very nice shade of blue, and they looked good. Okay, the Monarchs in their new uniforms with their new coach and their new era and their new system, they looked good, and they are 1-0, baby.
Woo! I love ODU. I love them. My godfather used to coach football there. So nothing against them. I just think that opening weekend is a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen. My case is resting in the Old Dominion and Elon game. My point rests there.
Well, not exactly, because you said that Elon wasn't the best of team. So
I don't think they are.
Oh my gosh! Man, how many times did Elon did they beat Drexel while you were there?
Once.
Dang, they beat you once. That's pretty good for a team that's not very good.
Well, we weren't either when they beat us.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I think it might have been more than once. I don't know. I made that up. I don't remember.
It's probably like 4 years in a row, something crazy like that.
Okay, well, maybe not. I only remember because it was pouring rain and they beat us 13-11, and it was like the most miserable game of my entire life. And they have grass fields, so we were all just like, oh god, it was miserable. Actually, I think
grass fields are the best in the rain. What are you talking about? So much fun. No. It's like being a kid again, playing in puddles.
You can't, except when you're trying to move and dodge.
You were a D1 athlete, Karson.
Yeah, it was hard.
Oh my gosh. Okay, any final thoughts on the opening weekend of the 2023 women's college lacrosse season?
No, I don't have any more. I think it's going to be a really fun season. There were some shakeups, and okay, we lost twice to Elon. I just checked, but it wasn't.
I'm not surprised.
It was 2 years when we were really bad. So, but no, I don't have any more thoughts for you. I think that it's gonna be a fun season to watch as people shake off the rust and start like running as smoothly as we expect them to.
Well, hey, according to you, Maryland doesn't have any rust to shake off. Okay.
9 turnovers means you don't have much rust to shake off. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, Maryland's gonna be good. I still can't. Basically, what happened in this episode is we asked for the most impressive team, and Karson really went out on a ledge there and listed 1 through 5. Minus Stony Brook, so 1 through 5 minus 1.
And not North Carolina, and I also threw out Boston College immediately.
No, you mentioned Boston College first, though.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I looked at them because they dominated USC, but then they had 17 turnovers, so you can't include a team with 17 turnovers.
Why not? They won 14-3.
Because you had 17 turnovers, which means you were playing like butt.
Then what is 25 turnovers playing like?
It's also butt.
Okay. Before we go, what were your thoughts on North Carolina beating James Madison?
Not surprising for me. I think that they should have probably beat them. They've beat them pretty consistently, I think. And
their big brother JMU's or big sister, little sister type stuff right there.
Yeah, they play all the time. I feel like that's always their first game of the season, and they're kind of just doing it to feel each other out. So I wasn't too surprised by it, but it was good to see UNC still like holding on to that and winning because I want them to win.
Yeah, I was impressed. I think I obviously was against a good opponent, but just outside of Patterson, I don't. Or is it
no,
Peterson?
They don't have much. It's Peterson.
Outside of her, there's just not a lot. There's not a lot in the cupboard. Okay, they have Rachel Mady on defense, who I think is a great defender, but they just don't have the talent.
No, I would agree.
So I think it's going to be a long year for JMU.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they've lost a little bit of their spark that they picked up over the last couple of years, and they do have her, she's incredible, but she doesn't have much around her, I don't think.
Yeah, because at one point, I think I can't remember the score, but she had scored all but one of James Madison's goals at one point. I mean, that was kind of early on, but I mean,
She put up 5. I think.
Yeah, she was making things happen. So
she's good. She's right.
Yeah, she might be hitting the transfer portal after this year. We'll see. Anyway, so what did we learn from this episode? Karson does not think Elon is very good for some reason. Elon, if you listen to this, I am a fan. Okay, hit me up with some tickets, some sideline access. Okay.
Elon, I'm supposed to not like you. I came from Drexel. If you're listening.
Oh my god. Well, evidently, we're good enough to beat you 2 times in your 10 years in college. So. Okay. Awesome. Well, this is just the beginning of what should be an amazing season. I cannot wait to see what else comes out of Carson's mouth in our future episodes after this debacle of an episode. Okay, really not an episode, just debacle of topic 4 of the episode. Okay, just mind-blowing stuff right there. Mind-blowing, mind-numbing, all in the same. Okay, so Karson, we will be back in 2 weeks on a Tuesday, going down on a Tuesday. Okay, and and the season will. Sorry, Carson's just cracking me up with her response right now. And we will be back, maybe with a guest, maybe with more analysis, but we are working hard to get some guests on this season and players, that is, some big time players that we think you will enjoy hearing from. So that is all for The Player and the Journalist, episode 18.